So good morning, everyone. Hello, this is Agile Mondays. So thank you for joining and welcome. My name is Elena Grunuk and I'm Regional Manager for the Central Eastern Europe at the SME Banking Club, and I will be your host today. And each Monday, I'm here with John Mark Williams from Agile Business Consortium and Maria Tsenusa from Integrated Consulting Group. So thank you very much for joining me in June as well, and hello.
Yeah, happy June, and hello, Elena and Maria.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Okay, so before we start, a very quick mention from my side on organizational moments. So our webinar is scheduled for half an hour. The format is panel discussion, so please, you're welcome to write your questions into the chat right from the start. And we will be answering them on the go, I think. And we are recording this webinar, so right after we finish, you will receive the link to the video. So today we would like to discuss the topic of performance management in Agile way and how agility can be a springboard to improve performance management practices. And I'm passing the word at once to Maria and John. And Maria, would you start?
Yes, I will start. I will first start with wishing everybody a happy 1st of June. We were just sharing some thoughts just before this recording started. For us, it's the Kids' Day, and it's a nice holiday. I've always longed for this when I was a kid. It was just before school was ending, summer is beginning. So with all this good vibe, let's start with the Agile in HR, dealing with performance management, a bit of a heavy subject that we're having today. It's actually the third week in a row that we are doing Agile in HR. And we specifically wanted to stay a bit on this topic because it has lots and lots of implications on the people development, on the way the company is delivering to the customer, on the company's performance overall. So we wanted to tackle it a bit more into detail, and without any more details, I will just quickly recap what we have discussed so far, just the metrics that we have on how you will have business agility, and where Agile people, it's actually the foundation for everything. You don't need Agile to tell you that. We already knew this. So, and starting from that matrix that we have courtesy of John, we also proposed some findings of the State of Agile report, in which we saw that the most influenced HR processes by the Agile way of working is actually, according to a survey performed last year, it's learning and development, performance and feedback. Very linked subjects to another. And a nice observation that we had last time from John was, as you could see from the graph in the top left, in the bottom left of the screen, in that graph you see that the operational part of the HR function is less and less in importance. So basically HR is becoming, as it should be, a strategic function alongside with business, is becoming a business partner, and together they are shaping the way the company goes. So it's more and more important for this. And what we would like to propose for you today, I give some numbers for the ones that are a bit of a statistical freaks like I am. So I ran into some research performed by Deloitte and the State of Global Workplace. There are two different ones. I'm just mentioning them because they're both on the same slide. 30% higher returns for companies that are performing a quarterly evaluation system, have a quarterly performance management system. 30% higher returns. So why should you improve your performance management? Because it's just simply more money. And I've read some other study that is tackling the engagement of workforce of people working, how engaged they are with what they're doing. And a staggering 85% of people employed simply either don't care, either hate their job. This is from human perspective, this is something extremely sad, because you are spending at least a third of your life being at work. If it doesn't say anything to you or you really hate it, this is such a waste of a life for those 85% of people. And when it comes to companies' performance, well, it has been seen by State of Global Workplace in this study that the higher earnings per share is just more than once bigger than the one of the companies that are engaged employees versus the companies that have people that are not engaged. So this is giving us some thoughts about it. What do you think? What do you think about these numbers, John?
I think two really, really important things stand out to this for me. If we look at the top number, the 30% higher returns for organizations that do quarterly performance appraisals rather than the usual annual ones. One of the basic principles, of course, of agile behaviors is that we keep assessing how we're doing. We keep having daily stand-ups. We keep having regular and frequent retrospectives. We look continually at our progress. And I think the idea of moving to quarterly performance appraisals is a natural step for an organization that wants to be agile rather than annual ones. And of course, I say of course because I want you to believe what I'm going to say next. One of the, if we extrapolate from that 30% higher returns from quarterly performance appraisals, then we see, well, maybe there's an opportunity to get even better performance if we do not appraisals, but engagement with our teams on a much more frequent basis, even than quarterly performance appraisals, which brings us to that point about engagement. Because, as you quite rightly said, 85% of employees disengaged is a phenomenal number. I don't think that there couldn't be a more important number, because if people produce the outcome that organizations achieve and 85% of them are disengaged, then that tells us something about how much more effective our organizations could be. And I think in a sense, the proof that the senior leadership teams might require of the need for us to be agile, because of course agility is about engaging people to deliver the outcome. The proof that the senior leadership teams might need is that 147% higher earnings per share. Engagement adds directly to the bottom line. So agile behaviors within an organization, agile mindset resulting in agile behaviors, will benefit not just the well-being of the people within the company, but actually benefit the company itself, including customers and other stakeholders. So some really, really powerful messages coming out from those two numbers, I think.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so if I move to the last slide, then the obvious question is, how do you set it up? How do you make it? Because it seems that it's paying off. It's worth the money, worth the trouble to do it. And then how do you make it? And we gathered here some best practices, and we will also share from our experience on what would be like the transitions that a company or an organization would take in order to have this agile performance management, or even, I dare say, in order to have a relevant performance management system that is adapted to our times, that are constant, subject to change, and that is fit for the people and delivering the right level of engagement and performance at the end of the day. So whether we call it agile, and we like to call it agile because for us it seems that it has a lot of principles that have been, let's say, borrowed from agile. But honestly, at the end of the day, and I know that also John is agreeing with me on that. At the end of the day, it's like common sense things that you would do. It doesn't need to be the 5 steps. They're not 5. There might be 9. Underneath this, it's just the common sense that you would do. John, you want to add something?
Yeah, and I think this almost the basis of what you've said is quite often language, like the 5 principles of this or the 8 ways to do that or whatever it is, language actually gets in the way of our achieving common sense outcomes, because of course, we all love models. We all love models because models simplify complex things to a level that we can all understand and apply them. However, almost by definition, models become therefore something that we start to rely on. They become dependencies. And once they become dependencies, we start to do only what the model tells us we're allowed to, which is the opposite of agility. And one of the things that I like most about Agile principles is that they are principles. They are not rules. They are not regulations. Here's some principles. Go and apply your common sense. So yeah, absolutely. Don't let the language get in the way of the productivity.
Yeah, indeed. So these are no rules, are just some steps that we have seen work in practice as well. Getting people on board, this is, it's not rocket science, obviously. And it has actually to do with more layers, in my view, not only to get people motivated, because I don't think motivation is something like a spoon of sugar that you serve to the people once in a while. You motivate them and then you go home and then you relax because they're motivated for a while. I think I really hated when I was also dealing with teams, this kind of approach of we need to motivate our people. People either are motivated from within, either they're not. And how do you get motivated from within? How do you get the buy-in of such a thing? Is that if I would understand, why should I bother with changing the way I'm working? Why should I change at the end of the day? What's in it for me? It's simple as that. And having actually open discussion with people, and transparency is one of the things that is highly encouraged by Agile. And having this kind of transparency with people, letting them know, giving them the empowerment of the self-organizing team, letting them improve seek their own way of improvement, seek their own way, having their own path of delivering things. It's something that feeds that intrinsic motivation that is everybody is seeking, because there is nothing more powerful than people valuing my opinion, truly asking me how I think and my opinion and how shall I organize, and letting me actually do the stuff. Like not only talk the talk, but also do the walk as well. This is some of the stuff that while I was managing some teams in the past, I've done it by explaining why are we here as well, explaining how we can be different from other teams, how are we allowed to have freedom in delivery, and how people can actually choose to have their own opinion in building that up the end product. And once you have that flying, linking goals with business priorities is something that comes in very smoothly. Because then I have the question, I'm asking myself and I'm asking the team, what are you good at? What do you like to do? This is what we need to achieve. How shall we make this together? This is picking the team goal and making it personal, but also about the team as well, and changing the KPIs from individual KPIs to shared team KPIs, not shared like a department, but team KPIs specific for every delivery. This is something that it translates into business, and it's feeding that performance that we're seeking. What do you think, John?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember once talking to a board when I was a consultant, talking to a board that was having really tremendous problems with engaging their people, and I was talking to them about engagement and the difference that would make, and they said, well, look, give us an example. How can we engage our people? And I said, well, ask them what they think.
Yeah.
There was a sort of silence around the board for 5 or 10 seconds, and one of the directors said, well, how are we going to do that? They want us to tell them what to do. And I just laughed. I said, no, they don't want you to tell them what to do. Actually, they want to do a good job. Okay, actually, therefore, if you go to them and say, this is the outcome that we want to achieve as an organization, what do you think about that outcome? And if you think it's a good one, what do you think about how we could do together, what we could do together to achieve that? Because that's what engagement is. Engagement is a conversation about how we jointly deliver. And the team, whether that's the whole organization as a team, or as you quite rightly said, the level of team which is delivering a particular outcome, which can be targeted on that outcome, can't function as a team unless everybody's involved. And I think there's a lovely the analogy is the conversation about diversity and inclusion, and it's a bit the same as engagement. Somebody said to me once, what's the difference between diversity and inclusion? I said, well, diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. And actually engagement is asking the team to dance, really. So I agree. And it doesn't matter whether we call it self-organization or servant leadership or consultative management. Actually, ask the team what they think. So you're absolutely right. That's the basis for this.
And it's actually, as a manager, it's actually something very practical as well, because you reach a point in which you cannot be in control with everything. And actually, the worst thing that a team can do for you is do exactly what they're told. You are, sorry to say this, screwed as a manager. If people are only going to do what they are being told, then it means that you as a manager have no vacation, have no free time. You have to think of everybody at the same time, all juggle everything. And this kind of control approach to command and control approach to management, I think is it's a bit of yesterday's management books, let's put it this way, if not even plainly not practical for you as a person. And another practicality, because I'm always a practical person, is that by showing people the business priorities, by determining together how you can reach them, you are actually getting information from the ground. You are getting information that you might miss, because when you are servant leader for various things that need to deliver, it is impossible for you to understand all the details of a certain delivery. You have a product that needs to be put in the market. You either are a very good product manager or you know how to design processes and flows, but you might not have any clue about marketing, about how you put it into market, about PR and everything that goes, that wraps the product end to end until it reaches the customer and gives that perfect, wonderful customer experience that is around your product. So basically, you need your people to actually act independently, because those people, if you let them fly, they are specialists in what they are doing. They are covering with details stuff that you cannot cover as a leader, yes? And being let a certain level of decision, they can actually react very fast if change occurs, if they are changing in the dynamics that we see. And from this, we go to the dynamic goal setting process, which is something that usually finance people don't really like that much. And it is about, okay, we want to go there. And then we have this variability that we imposed on the quarterly basis. We start to adjust because we need to adapt to the world that is happening, and not in the sense that we adapt just to make sure we reach the target. Question would be, is this really our target? Because the best example that we have is with this crisis that we had at the global level. I bet that the target that you thought that you had in January for, I don't know, bigger sales and whatever, for half of the companies, the target translated in May for survival. So basically, you need to be able and allow your internal processes as an organization to have this dynamic goal setting process. You need to adjust. Something that looked wonderful at the beginning of the year might not apply in May, and whatever applied in May might not work in August. And you need to leave these people room to breathe and to react to the environment. I do this when I'm working with people in the workshop, I do this scale, and the way that the people are reacting to it, to change in the old setup, is you tell your manager, and the manager tells the manager, and then it reaches the board or whatever, and then it goes back, and then you react to whatever happened in the market. Whereas in an agile organization, you need to breathe like a little sponge at every level, and you need to be able to have a certain decision power and level of reaction to the environment at every level, because we simply don't have time if we go like this. I tell my boss this. It's simply not working like that. And it's the same with the goal setting. It's the same with everything else related with performance. What do you think about the spongy?
I think that's really good, because there's a perfect example of in a way, dynamic goal setting, but still quite divorced from the market in the situation we're in now. If we think about the pandemic at the national level, the very first goal for most countries was, we need to lock this down. We need to lock this down to stop the spread of this virus. Okay, the goal is now changing, because actually the implication, the outcome of locking down the economy was that the economy began to suffer radically. So the goal now changes. How do we start to unwind some of those lockdowns so that the economy can start to recover? Now, the challenge for organizations, for governments who are being dynamic in their goal setting, the challenge for them is they're a very long way from the market, if we call it that. So they're having to release people, us, at the coalface, at the interface between the organization, if you like, the country and the marketplace, so that we can make our own decisions. The same is true for an organization. If the leadership team is making all the decisions, it doesn't matter how fast they think they are reacting, they will be distant from the marketplace. And the marketplace can change much faster than a senior leadership team can react. So the more that we devolve that responsibility, authority, and autonomy to the teams, the more actually we become agile, which means we sense and adapt and respond. So yeah, definitely. And people want to feel productive. I really believe that. Anybody who goes to work wants to feel that they're fulfilling themselves in some way. And one of the reasons why people remain disengaged is that they don't see the necessary dynamism in the goal setting, because then the organizations are not adapting to the real. Interesting.
And then you have the disconnect from performance and the KPIs that were set. Yep. And I've seen that in the past, and at some points I was also like that. I knew what I had to do. If you would be asking okay, but what is your KPIs? Yeah, I have that around that. I don't know if it really applies. I need to check what is in the system. And this disconnect it's simply not working anymore in the environment that we have right now. It cannot really work right now. And yeah,
I was going to say yes, and that I think takes us on to your fourth point, which is about actually developing the people, the training and coaching skills to support
yes,
with that.
Indeed, because right now the role of the manager is not to control and dictate whatever the team needs to do. It's actually to empower them. In order to empower them and to let go of that control, you need to be taught on how to do that. And actually, there are actually two thoughts on this one. Training is the very simple thing, and everybody is doing it. We need to go agile. Everybody goes to agile trainings. Cool. It's not about that only. It's not like we tick the box and then everybody's trained. Why aren't they functioning? I mean, what is right? They were not paying attention at the training. What happened? The trainer provider is not good then. Or we changed the trainer provider. It is like this. And then from this, you switch to the whole mindset, to the agile mindset that we are discussing, because managers are shifting from that role that they had in the past, the role in which they need to see how to best use the resources in the team. They need to understand the team dynamics. The team is very important for the delivery. They need to understand the team dynamics, how it works best, to encourage people to understand what people want to achieve in their also personal goals, how they can align to the business as well. And once you make this transition, the managers need a lot of coaching for that, because if you are let's say the middle manager, you are at your first managerial position, you usually are promoted because you are the best in the team, you are the best specialist. This is how it happens. And then what do you want to do? You want to make sure that you show everybody that you are worth the promotion. And therefore, because you get validated by the way you are doing things, you want your team to do the things in a similar manner that you used to do, because, hey, it got you promoted, so you must be right. And this thing is actually we were discussing last week, John. Remember, we were saying I'm afraid to ask my first team when I got promoted the first time. It was like, I think 15 years ago, and I first got manager. I'm afraid to ask them what kind of manager I was. I think I was the freak show, and I was like making sure nobody makes some mistakes, because I wanted to show people that my team is doing the right job. So therefore, I was controlling everybody. You have a lot of middle managers that are in this situation, and it's human. It's normal to be like this.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Absolutely. And this is very interesting, because the second point that you make, which is, of course, we need to train the teams. We need to train the teams in ways that are useful for them, and then we need to ensure, your second point, that we actually train the management and leadership as well, in order to be able to cope with these newly trained teams without stifling them by forcing them back into the holes that they were in before.
The box, Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Now, the crucial thing here is, the reason for that is that agility is not something that is trained like how to ride a bicycle. Agility is something that's deeply ingrained in people's mindsets. It creates a set of behaviors because it's principle based. So what needs to change is not just the behavior, but the system within organizations, work the whole system. And this is, I think, one of the biggest challenges, particularly for middle management, and certainly actually to a degree for senior leadership as well, is an agile organization doesn't behave in the same way as an ordinary hierarchical organization. By definition, it has self-organizing teams in it. There's no hierarchy associated with that. There's a matrix element to that. So I think the training and coaching requirements of management are the most underestimated element of becoming an agile organization. And it's largely because it's difficult to do, and there are lots of coaches out there who can be utilized, perfectly good coaches, to coach people who are agile operations. Great agile coaches who can work with operational teams and help them perform. There are far fewer coaches who could work with senior management or senior leadership teams to help coach them into becoming an agile organization. And I think that's maybe one of the gaps within the agile community that actually we can address. And there are some really good organizations out there who work with senior leadership teams, just not enough of them.
Actually, my question... Yes, Maria, please.
I wanted to share a very brief story of what happened a couple of years ago. It was about this point of having the manager deeply understand the implications of working agile. Yes, and not only delivering the setup and whatever, we post it on the wall and we call ourselves funny names. And I had this, and unfortunately, this coaching indeed is not available at the level that you require. And this is a very delicate function, because think of a well-established organization when it needs to move, and these strong managers that have been, with nice careers for a long time, are being told that you are too aggressive with your people. You are too imposing. You're imposing yourself too much on your people. Well, that person that is telling that coach better have some good, strong support in the organization. It works like this. It is a lot of politics. If it's not somebody from outside, you really need a very strong coach that is able to cope with these managers. And I have to tell you a very funny story in which I was with my one of the squads, and we were discussing on how to do a product. And basically, because I knew the content of the product that needed to be delivered, I was very sure of what I wanted to have achieved. It was a lending product. So therefore, I was telling people what to do exactly. And then I was like, you do this, come on, let's move, like this. And actually, it was very funny. The coach and the scrum master, they looked at me, it was not the first time I was doing that. And basically, the coach invited me to step outside of the meeting and let the team actually work. And we will chat afterwards, because it's nicer to have the team like this. So in plain words, I was kicked out from the meeting because I was not letting the team self-organize. And of course, the first reaction would be like, what do you know about this? What? How are you doing this? And you take a moment, you think, the ego, the remains of your ego, you try to grab them from the floor. You go, outside, have a walk, try to put on a nice, dignified face when you come back, because everybody knows that you've been kicked out from the team, because you're not... And then this is how you learn. But I wonder how many coaches are actually able to deliver this sourish pill to the managers and say, listen, right there, not good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this gets to the heart of the challenge, I think, in becoming an agile organization, which is the ego, and not just of individuals, but the ego associated with middle management. And I don't like to use that term in a derogatory way, because middle management performs an incredibly important function, incredibly important, and they are potentially the best purveyors of agile thinking within an organization. If we can get that cohort of people to let go of that control. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why the more we can identify coaches who can work with management layers around the understanding of what an agile system feels like, if you like, the more opportunity there is actually for the operational teams to perform. So Elena, I think you were going to ask something.
Yes. My question, yes, was actually, and probably this will be a summarizing one for today's episode. Actually,
already done.
Actually, I was wondering, what actually, from your experience, what does it take to move to this agile mindset and make people think in agile way in practice and in a quicker way? So from your practice, this is can you really train having a good coach of all the existing, let's say, middle management and top management? Or does it require changes of people in the organization to switch from a traditional one to the agile organization? What is your experience in this?
My answer would be it depends. I think because it's a big answer, because first of all, it will take time. And actually not accepting that it will take time is also a big challenge. Secondly, it will take consistent application of coaching and agile principles over that long, sometimes quite long time scale. And the third thing is it will take a willingness to accept not everybody will arrive at the destination that we want. And if the organization's best interest, remember we're talking about keeping the business need and the business priorities in mind here. If the organizational outcome is the one that we focus on, then we have to accept not everybody will come on that whole journey with us. And therefore we need to think about, how do we enable those people who aren't able to come all the way with us? How do we enable them to find another way to fulfill themselves in a way that's thoughtful and humane and people orientated? So it takes time, and it takes consistency, and it takes a willingness to accept not everybody will actually arrive at that destination with us.
Indeed. I could tell you that indeed the fact that taking time is something that usually senior management would not like to have, because you have the framework that is imposed from head office, agreed, whatever, you have a footprint, blueprint, all these nice words, yes? And then you put everybody in their chess positions, and now you work. And I have to tell you, the story that I told you about me being kicked out of the team, it was more than 6 months when we started working Agile, and we were trained and we had a coach and da-da-da. So I think after 1 year, we were on our way, but we are not still there, just to give a sense of dimension of time. In terms of consistency and people getting on board, some people get it faster than the others. I think it helps for us. For me, the experience was we had a coach that was hired from outside when we started, and it was hired. So either you, I think what I mean to say is it's very difficult for a person with existing history in the company to become all of a sudden an agile guru and teach the others, because it will be like a bit subject to jokes. Like everybody would say, hey, until yesterday we were doing the same thing, and now all of a sudden you went a week for some training, and now you're telling me what to do. It will be very difficult to have this kind of change with existing people. So it's addressing part of the question of Olena. I think if you want to have it faster, you need 1, 2, 3 key persons that are a bit from outside, that are not within the politics. They don't know, actually, they don't have the network, internal network, the interest already. And they can help with consistency by always applying that mirror. We are readjusting, we are doing the retrospective, we are looking what we are doing. Is it good? Is it bad? Let's look at what we are doing versus what we have agreed. And this is the project, and actually the last part of the slide, it was continuously adjust. And this is something for people to keep in mind. It's nice to have a plan, but we are not let's say, the servants of the plan. We made the plan, so we can change the plan at any time if we find that something goes better. So be willing to accept that you were wrong 3 months ago as a manager is something very powerful, because you get new information and then you can explain to your people, we thought that will happen. We got this information, we see how it works. Therefore, we need to adjust. And don't be afraid to do that. Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much for today, Maria and John. So we are closing today's episode, and see you next Monday at 11 a.m.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.